Hello and welcome into the latest episode of Sorare Rabbit Hunting. I'm Andrew Laird. You can find me as Lairdinho on Sorare, at Andrew M. Laird on Twitter. Today to talk about whether I got close enough to finish in first place in anything last week. To be honest, I had a fairly poor game week, and so I'm not really expecting anything. I made the joke fairly early in the game week that we'll be back here on Friday to see if I could have won any tier 3 limiteds. I actually did win some decent rewards, I think I got a little lucky on my rewards, which is always fun because I feel like a lot of times we feel the opposite about our rewards. So there's always that. But anyway, we'll go into that. Yonsei Soccer, welcome. Thank you for reminding me about talking about the new reward tier announcement that Sorare had. I have nothing to say about it other than I guess it's good. It feels like they probably had these tiers set up anyway within their system, and now the lines are just different. But it does feel like if you win a star, then you're actually going to get a star card, which is always nice, which that's a positive to me. Ultimately, they just need to fix everything that's within, like the players in each tier. That's really the foundational problem that people have had. I did see the new swap rules, which luckily for me came now as opposed to last week after I had to swap a swap because of an injury. But we're not here to discuss that. So thanks everyone else. Blue Tomatoes, Surface to Air Missile. Nice to see you guys. Oscar's asking if they've taken the burger out of the club shop. This is something, if nobody watched or listened or watched Sorare Andrews yet, well, not nobody, if you haven't, we talked about how they were taking out those club badge things. I thought it was really dumb, to be honest. And then so Andy had the burger and I think the watermelon. And then Jimmer last night I was chatting with, and he bought the burger, and I was going to say degened, but you can't degen spending 500 so coins of whatever they are now, which is now apparently 5 so coins. So I got a burger too. So my account on Sorare now shows the burger. Actually, I take that back. I have no idea if after today's change, the burger is there. Let's just take a look. Since we're here to look at my lineups anyway, did the burger stay on my account? Oh, it did. All right. So the hope is that this burger icon becomes like a status symbol, and that everybody who doesn't have one wants one. And of course, they're not transferable or anything, but true OG status here with the hamburger. I do regret not getting the watermelon also. Nanzo, hey, no, just came in. No idea what to expect, but I'm tuned in anyway. We're just here talking about food, or at least food icons that are showing up on Sorare, like this hamburger icon next to my name that I spent 500 so coins on yesterday. Actually, I don't even know if they were so coins yesterday, but they are now. But anyway, the point of this show, which we'll get into, is to see how well I could have done had I played all my highest scoring cards together in the same lineup in last weekend's game week, which was 349, I believe. So actually, don't even want to pull it up there because I never know what's going on those pages. But I'll use 349 here. Look at me. I'm already in line for a tier 2. Runnerson getting the start. Let's go. Sorry, that's the game week that just started. Here to talk about 349. Let me make myself a little smaller so you guys can see. As you can see, it was a fairly successful game week in terms of higher cards. You can also see I had a number of really good cards here. So I scored 410 in All-Star Limited, which got me a tier 1. And this was the lineup. Nicholas Ladero was the last piece in, and the only reason that I chose him, and I probably shouldn't say it like I'm about to, but this was the first lineup using the Sorare data pick scores where I had 5 AAA ratings. And honestly, Ladero's team scored 4 goals in a clean sheet. He had 20 AA and just couldn't get that decisive. Obviously would have crushed had he gotten an assist or a goal, one of the 4. Somehow Jordan Morris scored 100. And if you're going into a game week hey, do I play Ladero or Jordan Morris? no reasonable person is playing Jordan Morris. So I'll actually bring Jordan Morris up later if I end up talking about my lineups for the current game week, because he played, I don't want to say a prominent role, but a role. So anyway, we'll start with the limiteds. I'll be honest that I have not put together the players to see where I would have finished. I did look at the first place prizes though, because after last week realizing that literally my highest scoring cards would have finished first, I thought, you know what, maybe I'll just look to see what first place actually pays. And then we'll go in and see if I could have actually won it. And again, like I'm at 410 with this all-star limited lineup, and 3 of my players didn't have a decisive. Obviously, Messi just smashed his face off like Lionel Messi can. But I did have higher scoring cards. We'll find out if they were reasonable to put into this lineup or not. So the way that we've been doing it, and the way I'll continue to do it, is to use the concepts page, and we'll just look at what our last, and using Global All-Star. Again, if somehow my 5 highest scoring cards were like under 23 eligible players, then we'll check to see if I would have won under 23. There are times where like the highest score in U23 is higher than All-Star. In fact, I feel like it happened a couple game weeks ago where there was just this huge under 23 scoring, and I was particularly happy that I gave up playing under 23. But anyway, if we go to my players here for the game week, we have Messi and Harold Preciado, which right away, I'm never playing these guys together. So the 2 that I might have played together, though, are Preciado and Jordan Morris, had I made a reasonable Champion America limited lineup, which I think I did. I did win a tier 2 in America. This is where I did play Preciado. So I'll have to look back to see who was the other one. I've like already forgot. Oh, JMO. I didn't even play Jordan Morris. Like straight up, I don't think I did, now that I say that. But he's just not a player that usually goes into my lineups. I bought him because early on with limited cards, I bought a Sounders stack, because before last season, everyone's like, oh, the Sounders are the best team in MLS. MLS isn't really a league that you should stack, but the Sounders you can stack. And so actually, now that I think of it, that's 2 seasons ago, not even last season. But you'll notice like I have a Rusnak jersey mint, like 11 of 1,000. And this is the first season of MLS cards, or excuse me, of limited cards. So I've had these guys for a while. And I had a Rui Diaz, which I believe I sold. And I was like, I might as well get Jordan Morris for, their long playoff run, which ended up never happening. So 98.2 points from Jordan Morris. I actually thought he had 100 at one point. Obviously with XP, he would have gotten there. 28 all around. Like that's just not a Jordan Morris. Like over the last year, he'd averaged 7.7. That includes the 28 that he had. So I'm not going to give myself that hard of a time for not playing him. But if the rest of the guys that fit into this lineup are MLS, or excuse me, are Champion America, then we may as well see where that got us. No rules here, so we'll just make it up as we go. So we have Preciado and Messi, which again, I'm not playing this, so what are you going to do? Ito and Morris, a lot of forwards. This Vanaken card, I actually got after the game week started. Excuse me, so I didn't play him. So I'm actually going to throw that out completely for this game week. Tolo I did have, which was in that Sounders stack. I actually have 2 Tolos because I won one. Stop me if you've heard this before. I bought a card and then I won another one. But I got the new season one. So, whenever somebody's looking for multiple seasons of Know Who Tolo, you know where to come. So we've got Tolo, Jordan Bayer, who somehow came back from like a season-ending injury in like 3 weeks. So congrats to him. But I do not have a spot for another defender because we use 2 forwards. So we got Pedro Gallese, who eked out against Philip Cohn, which again is getting us a little closer to whether we may have been able to win Champion America as well. But of course, I'm never going to play my best cards in Champion America over All-Star. It just the prizes and all in America, particularly right now, are just not nearly good enough to justify playing them there. So we've got 4 America players plus Messi, and I can't believe I'm about to say this. Messi can become Jordan Morris if we look at if we want to put something together in America. Next season, I'll be able to play Messi when he joins Inter Miami. So we need a midfielder. So my highest scoring limited midfielder is Nacho Fernandez from River Plate, who the only reason I own this card is because I had a Mineiro stack and he was part of it. But he's at River Plate now. So unpowered, or maybe that's with some power, we're at 461. I'll add in the power just because it's what we do. So I've got an 8.5 Messi, which is one of these weird cards that so I've had that Messi for a while. The one that shows on Concept is not my Messi. I have, where is it? 184 of 1,000 from the first season of Limiteds. Using that card, like that's like the first card I put in every week, and it's really fun to have it. I'm not going to lie. I know not everyone can have one, but it's just fun to have that card. So let's see. There was nobody else from this lineup. So as I said, I want to put my best cards in All-Star Limited, and I only got one right. So good start. We've got this is that's the old Tolo I have, just the nice headshot. We've got Gallese here, so we can see what he's at 7%. And Mike Batson, is this a burger lineup, a lightning bolt, or a watermelon? So technically this was a burger lineup because I made it last week. And I'm sorry, this was a lightning bolt lineup because I didn't get the burger until last night. So everything from game week 351 and on is a burger lineup. So we'll see how well that, and never to be bought again, I don't think. Who knows? So we've got nobody here. Here's my Tolo is at 11.5% because it still has the current season bonus, which presumably goes away soon. James Honey with the huge news. Never a doubt, though. Mikel Doolin get the start today. That is huge. I have him in 3 different lineups. James, you just made my day. Absolutely fantastic. Anyway, Preciado at 6%. I'm pretty sure I won that card as well. And then I need Nacho. Did I skip Nacho already? Where are you, Ignacio Fernandez? Did I not play him either? What am I doing? Oh my God, I didn't play him. Oh, there he is. Whew. Oh, maybe Gallese. Just missed it the whole time. 9% on Nacho, which actually feels a little low because those Mineiro cards are like super. Is that really, that's it? 9%. Oh, because they had, no. I guess they had a season after that? I don't know. Anyway, we'll give, who, did Messi hit 100? Yeah, he did. We'll give Messi the captain's armband just so we don't look silly. So 495 points I would have scored in in Limited All-Star had I made this lineup, which includes 4 players from Champion America. This is why you don't sleep on Champion America players for All-Star competitions. So now the painful part is, where did 495 leave us? So if we just go to the Game Week Center, SO5, and then Game Week Center, and then we'll go back to 349. Nanza, this is exactly the point of this show, so that you guys don't have to go back and be like, man, what could I have won? You can just be like, man, Laird really screwed up, and imagine what he could win if he didn't screw up. So 495 leaves me second. I could not get first, thanks to a Juan Brunetta captain. What is this lineup? That is fun. Adon, the GOAT. Oh, Preciado makes an appearance. Grimaldo, João Mario, and Juan Brunetta. That is a wild lineup that I don't even know how I feel about that. But again, well, it's actually only 2 America players. So, but 497, there was no way for me to get there. So I couldn't have won first. So that's good. I could only win second. So let's check out the rewards. 349. Yeah, Santa's boy saying I need a Brunetta. So Brunetta is a player who somebody told me to get like a month and a half ago. Excuse me. Shout out to Gold Guy 231, also known as Gator Guy 231. He plays a lot of DFS, Liga MX, and he was like, hey, Juan Brunetta from Santos is just killing it, and you should buy one. And I was like, like I don't really need another champion America forward. Like Santos aren't even supposed to be that good. And he's like, yeah, it doesn't matter. He just he does everything. And I was like, I'm all right. I was not all right. This guy has just been incredible. It's basically this section right here is when he started playing. And I actually joked a little bit about Brunetta. Mike Batson is right. Soon to be Brunetta Guy 231. I think he's learned his lesson that he hasn't, that he shouldn't change his name. But so I don't even know. Let me see if he's even one of these guys, because he may have even been before. I could just go to the auction or the auctions and offers tab. There's Storm. So he's got to be somewhere around here. SR Monkey got in. All right, let me just do this. Storm is another one. Tendril Storm is another one. Very good. Sorare player. So, they bought at the same time. I just missed it. So they bought 2 months ago at 0.235. And this is when they were like, you should buy one. And I was like, yeah, I'll get there. And then I know that SR Monkey got one. And 0.3, and I'm like, it's already creeping up. I know Pachagal, 0.31. I know Durr at 0.312. And I'm like, it feels like I'm too late. And it was that stupid thing that we all do where like a price goes up and you're like, I'm late. And then you don't buy and it keeps flying. Shout out to Chani, Techers, and everyone else and when they bought, I was like, well, it's at that price now. It's too high for me. It's still going up, just like his SO5 score. So I'd love a Brunetta. I'm way too stubborn to buy one now. Simple as that. Too stubborn. So anyway, All-Star Limited, second place was Bukayo Saka, which I believe I would have won. Was that last game week? 2 game weeks ago? Saka was somewhere where I could have won. But I came up short of Erling Haaland, which maybe I should feel better about that. Maybe I feel better about it. Who knows? So I only played Messi in this lineup. So theoretically, if I take Messi out and I take Preciado and put him as a forward, theoretically, this is a Champion America lineup I could have made. And Jordan Morris, I literally didn't even play. All right. We have this lineup, which JMO, I have to look up my Jordan Morris card because I did not even consider playing him. Let's see what the Jordan Morris XP is. But presumably 8.5% on JMO. $496 in America. I mean, there's no way that doesn't win. No way. Nobody's scoring 500 points in Champion America. Okay, Champion America Limited. I would have won by 40. So, and there's a sounder stack. A full sounder stack won it, including JMO. And I would have had 3 sounders, no, only 2 sounders actually, Tolo and Morris, and then Gallese. I have Fry, which is kind of, do I actually have this entire lineup? I don't have Guillemar, Gomez, Andrade or Roldan. So I would have played Fry, Tolo. If I did my full sounder stack, it would have been Fry, Tolo, Rusnak, JMO, and Ladero. All right, so first play, let's just for, because this is what we do. What I could have won in Champion America Limited. Ooh, Carlos Hill. I have heard of him. This is what happens also when they don't have new season cards yet. They just start duplicates. 3 Kai Wagners. It's weird that they only would give like 1 Ricky Puig since he's got like 200 cards behind Vela. If anything, they should be giving out 200 Ricky Puigs. But anyway, so I would have won Carlos Hill and whatever ETH comes with winning All-Star or America Limited. But let's see what my full sounder stack would have scored, because I definitely considered playing it. There was no, they had a great matchup and I have the cards. So we've got JMO here. But again, we know that Ladero didn't get a decisive and Rusnak didn't either. So it's not like I had huge scores coming in. Yeah, like 347. Oh wait, why is it saying Rusnak didn't play? That's weird. 349. I mean, I played Rusnak, so I know that he played. Come on. Did I actually not play Rusnak? There he is. 45. That's weird. I wonder why he's not showing up with a score. Oh. This is where you guys in chat are supposed to be like, hey, you got 2 Rusnaks. Don't do that. 408 uncapped or actually, I guess we do have some XP. 408 leaves me, somewhere. Let's call it 39. I'll even pretend it was 408 flat. So I finished 41st in Champion America Limited, which is John Tolkien. Actually, a pretty good card. Not going to lie. Thanks, Baptiste. So not a bad card. I actually had a Tolkien at one point, sold it when the Matrix changed because I was like, he's probably not that good. And the guy, bad sale. Someone also suggested to me that I should do a show about all my bad sales. And I'll be honest, that one actually feels like it would be significantly more painful than this. This isn't that bad because I'm not really making lineup. Well, that's not true. Last week was literally a 1v1, but we move on from that. That's fine. So that's limited. Also, well, that doesn't matter. The scores don't matter. All stars the same scoring. So those were the limiteds. Let's go into what I think Rare Pro. It turned out that I actually did have better players than I thought I did. You can see, I won a tier 2 rare from Cap 240. This is I made this lineup to hit 250 points. I was like, let me just get the ETH and I'll move on. And it scored 362 almost. And so there's that. But Juni Ito, and I love this card. I love when it smashes, and I love when it helps me win a reward. The reward I got for this is Cap 240 rare. I believe, well, not that I believe. I know because I played the card. But I won this Dwight McNeil forward card, which was particularly fun because we had just talked about Dwight McNeil on Looking Up with Laird over on Sorare TV. So if you guys haven't subscribed to Sorare TV or at least gone over and liked all the Looking Up with Laird videos, please do that. Like this video. Also just as easy to do. In fact, easier because you're already here. But like this lineup, I guess for like a rare pro lineup, I could have played Ito and Gaiese. I doubt I would, but we'll get into it because that's what we do here. A quick thing here that I wanted to touch on. Mike Basson saying, having done this for a few weeks, where you sat mentally with it, disappointed that you've missed out on so much, or content knowing you would have never built those lineups? So like last week was like a legit 1v1. And had I made the other choice, I would have won All-Star Limited. And I think that's when I would have gotten a Haaland Limited. I think that's what it was. And while disappointing, like I'm not necessarily like learning anything from that. Like it was a pure toss-up. Like I had two good cards. I made a decision on one and the other one turned out to be better. And so I didn't feel like a mistake. And I haven't gotten to the point in this show where I put a lineup, like I see my highest scoring cards and I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh shit, like I totally should have done that. And so I think there's positive in that because I'm not taking the lesson of let me just throw shit together and hope that hits. Like I think that's wrong. Even though these high scoring lineups where I would have won All-Star Limited by 40, like that's the lineup that won is a bad lineup. Like that was not, well, I think it was a bad lineup. And so I don't feel like disappointment doing this. It may like you guys may feel that like I'm feeling like heavy on this, but I'm not. Like the moment that this becomes dread every week where I like, hey, tune in to find out how bad I am at Sorare. When that happens, the show's over. Like I'm not here to not have fun. Like I find this stuff kind of enjoyable. I like looking back and to see like what could have been. And I'm not sitting here like, man, if I had won that Haaland and then I used it this week and then I did this, like I just don't, like personally, I just don't do that. And if I get to that point, I'm out. I'll say that right now. So just so everybody is prepared for that. But I hope it doesn't come to that because I do kind of enjoy this. And this concept, to be honest, like I started this because I wanted to get a little better at just like talking for an hour. And I was like inspired by people like Quinny and Nellis and Mike Zakarian and Harry and just like a whole bunch of people, Chani, Nep, who like do like solo content and it's enjoyable. And I'm hoping that this can, I'm hoping that like the going down a path of like what I could have won, it turns out to be more enjoyable than like, let me watch this guy cry for an hour. So it's also like, if nobody likes this stuff, then I'll just stop it also. Like there's nothing forcing me to keep going. And yeah, Chani's here. Thanks, Chani. Said solo content somewhat therapeutic. Yeah, I agree. And just being able to talk out and like having people in the chat is really helpful. And it's nice knowing that like someone's watching. And so the comments that come up, like Mike, who is like such a great supporter of all the stuff that we do at Sorare Data. So thank you, Mike. But like it helps like move the conversation along, helps me think of things and realize mistakes like having two Rusnaks in a lineup, even though none of you noticed it. But we move on. So All-Star, let's do All-Star Rare Pro because I'm pretty sure I had a decent scoring couple of super rares, like nothing crazy. Ensgoat just like delivering again. This guy is incredible. So let's find out how close I was from winning All-Star Rare Pro last week. So bad. Mike said, to be honest, we need videos of how shit they are at SO5. I hope that's not what this becomes. To be honest, for my own sake, I hope it doesn't become that. So anyway, let's check out All-Star Rare Pro, which some people continue to call Global All-Star or GAS. That's just wrong. I don't think they use Global anymore. Yeah, All-Star. Let's use the right words. Oh, they're new reward tiers? Kidding. All right. Juni Ito, first man up, banging that 100. Always love a good Juni Ito 100. I know, like, people have asked for this, and I feel the same way. And technically, it's like one of those things that, like, it's probably not worth it. But not seeing my Juni Ito card there, like, hurts a little bit because it's such a great card. This one right here, also because I paid so much money for it, and he immediately got transferred. But like I said, going back to my transactions would actually be more painful than this. All right. So we've got Preciado limited, so Messi limited, Preciado limited, JMO limited. Van Aken would have been nice if I had gotten this card earlier, but I didn't. I got that card this week. It's also, for those of you who are unaware, it's also a 2018-19 card. I think I gave up a little more than I should have to get it, but I got it, and I feel happy about that. So there's that. Where is that card? Here it is. Like, how nice is this card? Let me shrink myself here so you guys can really get, like, this thing is just awesome. It has no extra XP. Frankly, it has low XP to be such an old card on the platform, but I'm super excited. I captained this card this week just because it was fun. I have Van Aken and Juni Ito in a lineup together. Ito had the better matchup, the better pick score, and I'm like, you know what? Hans, come on in. And I strapped that captain's armband right on his arm, and we're ready to go. But again, didn't have it before the game week, so we cannot count him here. As we continue to go down the list of limited cards that I have, Tolo, I have 2 Bear. So Gaieze is I have him in rare and limited. So he checks in as our goalkeeper. And so now we still need a few super rares. We continue to go down the list and get the limited cards. As you can tell, my limited cards are much better players than my rares or super rares. But here's Ensgoat. So we'll put him in. There was no doubt that he was going to be a part of this journey. I continue to believe that he is the most underrated player on the entire platform. It's great. And I'm going to ride it as long as I can because he's old. He's like almost my age. And so the end surely is near at some point. Okay. I had a Paradella rare back in the day. I traded it for something terrible. I don't remember what the deal was, but I remember that, like, when I got rid of it, it was like, all right, he's nothing. And then River had a bunch of injuries, and all of a sudden, like, he slotted in, and then he started taking set pieces, and I was just like, why did I get rid of that card? He was under 23 at the time. I still have a limited, but we don't have it. So Brian Lozano, who I do have a rare of, who is fine. He's fine. If you really want to know all about him, go ask Andy Black. So that gets us to, so I need a super rare defender because I always play 2 super rares. Theoretically, if I didn't, I would play this Espino card because I have it as a rare. So that gets us this lineup if I just use, like, truly my 5 highest scoring players. Espino was actually, I believe, a tier 3 reward recently, which feels kind of crazy. Maybe I'm not giving him enough credit. Espino, it was a tier 3. Yeah. Obviously, the clearance off the line was quite helpful this game week. Let me just keep scrolling briefly to see if I had a super rare defender. So Tadic was kind of disappointing. I do have his rare. Adon, I have Yari rare. This is getting ugly, actually. So Lubicic at a 61, 61 uncapped. So if we just do, what is it? It's 25 or 20%, right? So 73 raw score with the, so that is actually, oh, wait a minute. Did I say Lubicic? I did. He's a midfielder. Sorry, I can't even put him in there because, I mean, I guess I could play him over Lozano. Let's just keep, my God, some really bad. Coates, 58.9. So Espino is actually higher scoring. And I guess I could play Lubicic because the Lubicic super rare would outscore the Lozano rare. So like here we are. There's like nothing here, right? Like 418. I'm not even going to actually, I guess I need to put in, this should be, it's not really 25%. Okay, 430. Let's just see how close we were because it's almost not even worth going through it. Like 511 I needed last week. 511 to win. So I'm not remotely close. 430. I'm not even sure. I guess it does get a card. Is that what I said? 430. All right. Okay. Let's just do it. We're here. Let's just put in what we would have gotten. Lubes. Carlos Heel, giant disappointment last week. Like Gil Tadic, I don't have these guys in here to score 60 and 70. Pick it up, boys. Come on. 13 points from a reward too. With an Adon clean sheet. There is nothing worse than blowing an Adon clean sheet. Chani, I think, has won every time he's gotten a clean sheet. But man, super tilting when you have a clean sheet and you don't take advantage of it. So, like, as I'm scrolling through, like, how is this the most like mediocre lineup you've ever seen? If you just looked at like the yellow scores, just brutal. So, all right, Espino 5.5. I just got that card, so obviously it's not going to have huge XP. Gallese, I've already forgotten. 4%. Oh, I did just get this card, and it's an old one. That's weak. It's funny when you're like used to high XP cards, and then you get one that's not that high, and you're just like, what have I been doing? And then I had to remember that I bought it recently. And 26.5. Who do we have left? Ito and Enzo. All right. Enzo, which I probably skipped already. I did. All right. Sorry if I'm going too fast, but I have no reason to go any slower. There's Ito. 7% Ito. And this is why this tool might be a little bit better if we used our own cards, because it could like pull in. I say this as if it's like easy to do that stuff. I don't know. In fact, I know that this stuff's not easy. That's why it's so impressive of how well our engineers here at Sorare Data are. 455. So actually, that sounds like a reasonable finish. Yeah, Surface, I agree. It's a pretty good lineup to not win anything. I think the problem with it, where did that go? It was All-Star Rare Pro, right? Like, I hate to say this because it sounds bad, but like, I actually don't think you should win a reward with only one decisive in arguably the most competitive competition on Sorare. So like, I get it. Like, was I disappointed? Sure. 372 feels like it should be enough in some instances. And I needed like 385, 386. In fact, 386 exactly, I think. And so yeah. So there's that. And Jopi, no sane human being would play that lineup over the Tadic one. Exactly. Exactly. Like, this is the lineup I played. And this absurdity is what would have gotten me 455 points, which puts us at 15th place. And 15th place in All-Star Rare Pro would have gotten me Frankie de Jong, who either on the first episode or second episode, I thought I was supposed to win him, and it turned out that it was the guy either ahead or behind him. But a Frankie de Jong, last tier 0 spot. Oh, how about that? Shout out Nuno Mendes, who's now a tier 1 after I won him for finishing like 5th in All-Star Rare Pro ones. But yeah. Oh, and there's Chani with his Joe Willis, which Joe Willis is just, he's a guy. I get it. He's got more utility in the short term than Mignolet and Anthony Lopez. So there's that. But man, one spot from Camavinga. I bet Chani would have gone nuts if he had won Camavinga in a good way. All right. So there's that for All-Star Rare Pro. This. Do I say this out loud? Yeah. This looks like a punt lineup that I would make, which is nuts because I would never disrespect Enzo Perez as a punt lineup. But like, no way I make this lineup. Ito, I have played an All-Star Rare Pro before. I came very close to playing him this game week because he has such a great matchup, but I didn't do it. But ultimately, this is not one I'm making. So if we just go to All-Star Rare, so we've got Gallese, Spino, Lozano, because we took him out early. And then Ito, I don't remember who the other, high scoring one is, so we can go back and check. So like Joe P's comment that I highlighted before, like no sane human being would play that lineup. That's why this show's not that bad for me, because you shouldn't make that lineup. That lineup is like that. That's not, let me rephrase, because that's coming off really aggressively. But like, if those are your best cards, that's the lineup you play. But those were not my best cards. And so I've been like fortunate enough to like win some really good cards. I bought some a long time ago that I still have, like this Adon card. Shout out to John Nellis, since I bought it from him. Very fair trade at the time, to be honest. And so, yeah, like in my situation, that's not a lineup that I would have made, that I should have made. So there's that. And Mike Basson saying punt lineups are now to be known as the SoCo in lineups, please. I have plenty of these, to be honest. I was making lineups last night, and I spent at least 5 minutes looking for the cheapest Champion Asia limited forward so that I could put in a Champion Asia limited lineup, because I have Cecina, but I use him somewhere else, just praying that the K-League is covered enough. But I realized I had 3 DNPs in it anyway. Now, I wasn't going to make 100 points even to get the 100 SO coins or however many I get. So I gave up on that. But that is true. For the fact that like the announcement said that these SO coins won't affect the market or gameplay at all, and literally on that day, I'm trying to buy a card to win SO coins, to buy, who knows, because we don't even know, other than that hamburger that I bought yesterday that hopefully lives on forever and no one else can get one. Anyway, what the hell are we talking about here? My highest scoring rare. I need one more. Any position, which is always fun. Where did I go? Here we go. So we know it's, actually, it might be Tadic, but I don't think so. Would have been Van Aken had I owned the card at the time. Nacho, I don't have. I would love a rare Ignacio Fernandez. I don't know why I don't have one. Frankly, I should own a rare Enzo too. Paradella used to. There's Lozano. There's Espino. Oh, it is Tadic. This is just like proof that I wasn't going to do that well. Okay. So I never played Tadic. That's not true. I don't want to say I never played Tadic in All-Star Rare. I have played him before in instances where I don't think I have a good enough Rare Pro lineup. And it does happen. Like if my super rares are not that good, I'll just play, especially now that they pay out ETH to so many spots. I'm willing to take the chance on that. So Gallese 4.5. I actually remembered. Espino 5.5. Ito, I forgot. Let's see. This is All-Star Rare that I did play, which, I mean, River Plate giving up 2 on its own is bad. And then when Armani commits the penalty, it's even worse. So Tadic is at 6%. So I need Ito and Lozano. So I came into this like thinking that my cards are really bad. And like you can see that for Rare Pro, like obviously I could have won something, but it was a lineup that I just like wasn't going to make. Where we were? Lozano 3%. Jeez. Gotta hit the training table here. All right. And then Ito's 100. Again, like you have Juni Ito in a lineup and Dusan Tadic, and you're like, Juni's getting the armband. So anyway, 432 in All-Star Rare, which really that doesn't sound competitive at all. 474 wins it. So what did I say? 432. 432 points gets me 14th. Not a bad finish, actually. Maybe I spoke too soon. And we get Severa, almost the second to last tier 0. He's a goalie in the Segunda Division who gets a clean sheet or he doesn't because he's a goalie. There it is. Chani said I got to hit the club shop for the XP. Totally. To be honest, though, and I don't know if I'm definitely doing this because we have to see like what it actually means. But I do think that there's like a chance that there's a chance I do it wrong and that I just like try to get certain guys all the way up to 10%, which like isn't that bad. But it's probably more beneficial to get like my lower ones up. We don't know if it's like XP points. They did say level though, which like that is crazy to like give that away just from So Coins. I'm worried that has a much bigger effect on the game than they think. I said that during Sorare Andrews yesterday. And so I don't know. We'll see. So I could have won some stuff last week. Again, I did actually win some things. So it's not like I didn't win anything. So last game week, I won this Dwight McNeil rare, which I put into Cap 240, I think, this week, if I remember correctly. So this is what happens when you have a Michael Dooland. Man, that is fun. But anyway, I think I played McNeil. Yep, right here, Cap 240, trying to get the ETH right away. And then I played the Pascal, it was Pascal Gross Limited that I played in somewhere, 270 maybe? Oh, I don't know where I played that card. Pascal Gross. Oh, there we go. Champion Europe Limited, yeah. Have a feeling this one's not quite going to reach the podium, but going to get me some So Coins. Hopefully. But this was going to happen. Like I wasn't going to I probably would have put this lineup in. I've always been somebody to be like, can I get a lineup in? And if the answer is yes, I put the lineup in. Like my win rate on Sorare is like not that good. Yeah, 19.5%. Actually, I have no idea if that's good or not. But it's there. And then I won Christensen, which I sold, which I actually was like, I own a Ter Stegen Limited. So obviously like the correlation works there, but I don't really play Champion Europe after we literally just talked about Champion Europe. But like, yeah, I have Kim Min Jae, who I always play. I actually usually play him in All-Star. And I didn't this week because I took full confidence in Sporting, which feels super dumb right now. Not dumb yet, but it's like one of those things that like it makes sense. They have a nice matchup, and hopefully it just works out. And please score the Gameweek. So yeah, that's it. I did want to touch on one thing. I don't know if I want to go all the way into it now. We got like 10-ish minutes left. Not that like the clock expires or anything. Maybe everyone in the chat can decide on this. So I can either go through quickly like what I thought about my lineups for this game week, meaning the ones that are up on the screen right now. But I also got a DM from someone yesterday basically asking how I ended up at Sorare Data and like how I got into working in sports and all of that. And it's just way too much to write back in a DM. And so I was like, maybe I'll talk about it on the show today. And if nobody cares, I'm cool with that. But if you guys want to hear that, then I'll go through that. And if you want to hear why I play, or why I played certain guys where, or what contests I entered, I'm cool with that as well. So I'll give you guys like 1 minute to write in the chat, and if nobody is cares, then maybe we just stop. Blue Tomato said, "Yeah, tell us," but I gave you 2 options to tell you. So it's not a super exciting story, but I know that there are people who are interested in how people get jobs in sports, because it's not always the easiest thing. And I'll be honest, that is one of those things. When I used to work at RotoWire, which is where I was before Sorare Data. All right, so now I'm talking about it. So there's that. Sorry if anybody wanted to hear about my lineups for this week. We'll go through it all next week when we realize how good Michael Dooland is and why I won everything because of him. That would be awesome. So my guys, answer the DM here. So yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm going to do. Hudson, the lineup logic can come next week when it didn't net you a Kimmich. Was Kimmich on the list already of like cards we could have won? I think it was. But anyway, so I'm going to go way back. This is going to be a long story, but so if you don't care about this, like I'm not talking about lineups anymore. And so feel free to just leave. Before you do, hit the like button, because it's important for tons of reasons, actually, which is kind of silly. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do so. All right. So I used to work in finance. I was actually a history major coming out of university. I went to Villanova University. And I started out working at like a retail bank, helping, as I describe now, I helped rich people buy cool things. I basically like worked in a group that gave loans to rich people based with the collateral was their stock portfolios, which is really rewarding work for some people. And it just wasn't for me. And I did it for a few years, and I left that job to dig deeper into it by joining a company that lent money to hedge funds to invest in other hedge funds. And the money was fine. It was good. And it just wasn't all that fun. Like I actually worked with some awesome people, and some of which are like very much still friends today, but none of like our friendship was about the actual work. It was about like being at work together, which I think happens to a lot of people. So I was living in New York City at the time. I'm born and raised in New York City. I lived at home after college and commuted to work. And then one day I was like, I don't really want to do this anymore. And so I needed a way to get out. You can't just like, I've always loved sports, and the idea of working in sports was really cool, but it was at a time where it was like, do you work for a team? Do you work for a league? Like, who can you work for? Go work at ESPN or something like that. Danny Brams, thanks for coming in. Speaking of ESPN. So I decided to get my master's in sports business from New York University, which was both a, a, a good decision and a horrible one. And I'll get into why both of them. Actually, the longer I am from when I was at NYU, the more I think it was completely unnecessary to go. But maybe having that degree helps me look better. But I don't. Well, that's not true. There are tons of things I learned in that program that I use now that like are really helpful to just give me perspective on business and how companies are run and how companies can prioritize revenue while also not pissing off their users. Anyway, so before actually I went to NYU, I started doing some effectively freelance work for RotoWire. My older brother, so I'm going to have like 100 tangents in this because it's just how I have to tell the story. One of the things that always bothered me when I was at NYU is that they would have people come in and speak to the classes, like how they got into sports. Yeah, I'm the CFO of CBS Sports, or I overlook the production for every college basketball program and all this stuff. And the stories were always about like how they worked really hard in school and they grinded out and did this, blah, blah, blah. And then it was always like, and then my dad hired me to do this. And that's how I became general manager of the Milwaukee Bucks. And you're just like, oh, so your dad got you a job. And there were just so many of these situations where they were like, oh yeah, my neighbor worked for whoever, BT Sport, and got me a job. And it was always like all of the hard work part of the story for me just like went out the window when it was like, oh, you just knew someone, which like is reality. But also when you're talking to a group of people who are trying to work their way in, but then obviously you realize that school is all about networking, and people you meet in school end up being the people that like, I knew a guy. So anyway, so I started doing some NFL work with RotoWire, covering the Denver Broncos. So I would basically like go to the Denver Post website every day, and if there was any news about the football team or any certain players, I would write the player notes for RotoWire. So like if you go to Sorare Data right now, and for any like NBA news, because that's what we have it here. So if you just go to the news section, like there's just news. Oh, LeBron is out for a little bit. So this is news from somebody else. This is from Mike Trudell of Spectrum Sportsnet. And then the analysis of like, what's the deal? Like, tell me why this is important. And so I did this for NFL, for RotoWire for a few years. And at some point, I was started making $50 a month doing this. And honestly, like it wasn't like significant work. So it's not like they were like stealing from me. But it was also like, how motivated can you be when you're making like $50 a month? I don't know. But what was cool is like I got to write the team preview. They have like a fantasy football, like fantasy NFL magazine. I don't have it in here. But it's like cool to see like an article that you wrote like in a magazine that is sent out to that thousands of people read. So there's this like draw, and that's when I started like really getting into the whole like how content works, that there's this draw for a lot of people that like back then it was like, we'll give you exposure. So like the exposure was like, I am printed, I have articles printed in this fantasy football magazine. So over the years, I just started to do a little more at RotoWire. Like I had the free time and it wasn't like grueling work, and it was interesting. I was really into fantasy NFL back then. And so it was just like this cool thing that like, oh, I kind of have like this little job in sports. So I go to NYU part-time while I'm working at this company that lends money to billionaires so that they can give money to other billionaires at basically 0% interest. And so I'm living in Connecticut at the time and commuting into the city. It's like an hour and a half, 2 hours door to door. And so I'm going to work I get to work at like 8:30 a.m. again after a 90-minute, 2-hour commute. Work day, then I go to class, and then I commute home. So I'm like leaving my house at 6:30 in the morning, and I get home at like 11. And I do this like a couple days a week for like a year and a half, and it's just brutal. And so at the time, I think right around then is when the whole Bernie Madoff stuff happened, which could mean nothing to you guys. And I'm not going to go into what it was, but it basically created this shitstorm at work. And they had to like cut costs. And in this weird like situation, they were like, if anybody wants to go on a sabbatical, you keep your job, you get like 15% of your salary, but like when it's over, you come back to your regular job and whatever. And I had like 2 or 3 classes I needed to finish for my degree. And so I was like, I'll do it. And so I went on sabbatical from like January to June, May, June, to finish my degree. So I graduated, got my master's in May, and I went back to work at this bank. And I was starting to look for jobs, but like the economy started to like tank. And it hadn't like totally tanked yet. It was like there were signs of it, but it hadn't happened. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna go for it and work and try to like, I'm not gonna like spend my time at work looking for a new job. I'm just gonna quit and look for a new job. And so I quit. And I was married at the time. My wife and I got married in 2009. And so I quit in 2010. And I live in Connecticut. ESPN is headquartered in Connecticut. And I was like, I'm going to quit and I'm just going to go get a job at ESPN. Like, no problem. Turns out that was a big problem because like the economy tanked and they weren't really hiring anything. So I did interview for 2 jobs there. One of which I basically turned down in the interview, where it was like it was a classic case where like the job was presented as A and it turned out it was like B, and the pay was a lot worse. And I was like, I had just been working at this bank for a while, and people who work at banks, a lot of them end up making a decent amount of money. I was one of them. And so taking like a 65% pay cut was like, I wasn't willing to do that. However, I basically was like taking 100% pay cut by not doing it. So anyway, anything at ESPN didn't work out. And I went to like my bosses at RotoWire and I was like, do you guys have any other work you can send me? Because like I'm interested. So I started to get a little more. And then my son was born. And that sort of, it obviously changed everything. And because I wasn't working, I basically became a stay-at-home dad. And I was doing like an hour or 2 of work for RotoWire every day. And I was making like $15 an hour. Maybe it was that much, I don't know. And I was home with my son. So like from a family perspective, it was great. I got to like be with my son all the time. And I never really had like really young, like close family. Like I didn't have my nieces and nephews weren't like close enough where I was just like around me. Like I was like full-fledged, like new dad. I had no idea what I was doing. And all of a sudden I remember like my wife, who's a teacher still, like went back to work. Like I have this like burned in my brain of like holding my son at the door as my wife like went to work, back to work for the first time after she was home from maternity leave. And just thinking like, holy shit, like what happened? Like what happened? And so I went back to like my bosses at RotoWire, and like new kids, like babies, are both a lot of work and you have a lot of downtime because they sleep all the time. It doesn't feel like they're sleeping all the time when you're in it, but it turns out they are. So I went back to my boss's RotoWire and I was like, hey, I have like a lot of time. And if there's any work that you have that you need somebody to do, I'll do it. Like that's exactly what I said. Like, I'll take anything. And so they gave me a little more football work, and it was like, oh, could you look at this? And like, it was fine. And at one point, I had a call with Peter Shanky, who was the founder, one of the 3 founders of RotoWire. He was a CEO, president, whatever they called him. And he was like, so we have this deal with ESPN where we provide player notes for the English Premier League. It's soccer. And we have a guy who writes the notes, but we just need somebody to like make sure they're getting done. Would you mind looking that over? And I was like, yeah, for sure. Absolutely. Like, no problem. So I hung up the phone and it was like, all right, you're now responsible for the English Premier League stuff. And I knew absolutely nothing about soccer, like zero. I couldn't name 2 Premier League teams at the time. And the only reason why I could name Manchester United is because I went to a Manchester United match at the old Giants Stadium in New Jersey, like 10 years earlier. I don't even remember who they played. It might have been AC Milan. And Tim Howard was in goal. And a friend of mine, who's like a very good friend of mine from college, was like, hey, do you want to go to this game? And I was like, sure. I wore a Metro Stars jersey to the game, to a Manchester United AC Milan game. So I knew nothing about soccer. And now here I am as somebody who's like overseeing soccer at RotoWire. And so I was like, I was like, I need to learn about soccer. Cause like I'm reading the player notes and I have no idea what they mean. Not that I played soccer as a kid, so it's not like I didn't know the rules of soccer, but like somebody gets hurt and they're like, oh, this guy's going to play. And it's like, I don't know if that's true. Okay. So I was like, I need to like get into this. And so I just started watching any soccer that was on TV. And at the time, there really wasn't that much on in the States. Like right now, you can watch anything, like literally it feels like any match in the world, you're surely going to be able to find. And back then you just like couldn't. So I remember watching a Tottenham FA Cup match and just being like, oh, all right, like, why isn't this match counting for the fantasy game? And then it's like, oh, they have the FA Cup. Oh, and there's also, what was the Carabao Cup? I don't even know if they still call it the Carabao Cup now, but it was something else. So, and I'm like, oh, they have all these cups. And sometimes they leave to play for international teams, but there's also the Premier. Like, it was so confusing, but I was like, I need to learn this. And so I like totally threw myself into it, just the Premier League. And at some point I was like, I started writing player notes myself because I was like, at least I could say like, oh, this guy scored a goal. He has 3 goals in the last 4 games. And that's it. Like, that's the analysis. Blue Tomato says it's the League Cup now. Is that really? They don't have a sponsor at all now? That's terrible. We're the energy drinks when you need them. So I decided to, Mike's saying Coca-Cola Cup back then. I don't think it was Coca-Cola. I should just look it up, but I'm not going to. And it is still Carabao. All right. So I started writing the player notes. And then all of a sudden I was like, the process for playing fantasy Premier League is actually very similar to NFL. That is like, there's basically, for the most part, there's like 1 game a week. There are press conferences that tell you the injuries. And I was like, I had done so much NFL work previously, including like injury news and following press conferences and writing about guys who were like inactive, basically like analysis after the starting lineups are out. And I was like, we could do this for soccer. And they were like, yeah, like, if you want to do it, like, go ahead, but like, you don't need to like spend a lot of time doing it because it's just not worth it for us in terms of like the revenue that comes from it. So but I did it. I was just like, I'm going in. And so I started learning a bunch of different leagues, and all of a sudden like DFS Premier League came out, and then they started doing a little more. I realized I'm getting a little long. I actually don't have more than like 10 minutes. Hopefully the story's not that much longer. Capital One Cup. That's exactly what it was. Thank you, Rob. Shout out to Rob, SAFC. So I just started doing more. And then I was still like, I still have more time, and I'm like making pennies. And like, my wife and I bought a house. I have a kid at home, and I was like, I'd like to make some more money. And so I remember on New Year's Eve one night, Pete called me and was like, I need you to call this other guy, Jason Thornberry. He works on this project that we're doing where they basically write like generic news notes all day long. And they sell them to another company whose name I can't remember right now. So I was like, all right, I'll call Jason. So I called Jason, and he's like swimming in this project where basically we had other writers writing all these notes, and they needed somebody to edit them and publish them 24 hours a day. And he was like, I could really use some help with these. And at the time, Jason was the only editor and publisher of these notes. And he was like, how much can you do? Because I'll take, like, if you can do an hour a day, like, that'd be really helpful. And I was like, I can do as much as you want. Like, that was always my thing. Like, I have all the time. And once I get to a point where I realize I don't have the time, I'll tell you. But I have all this time in the world. So I started doing this, and I was working basically like 7 and 8 hours a day because Jason lived out on the West Coast. And so the early morning news, it was like, I did that. And then he did the late night stuff because it was just later for him. And it just like worked. And I was working all these hours. And then DFS soccer came about, and I started doing stuff for that. And I just started doing all of this work. And finally they were like, you're doing so much that we'd like to hire you full time. And RotoWire is based in Madison, Wisconsin. And they asked me to move to Madison. And basically my entire family and my wife's family are around here. And so they didn't, Ben's asking all for $50 a day. No, this was like, I was getting like $15 an hour, paid monthly on PayPal. So Oscar's asking what team I support. I support Arsenal. And the reason I support Arsenal is because somebody I used to work with supports them. That was it. Like when I was like, hey, I need a team to follow. Who should I follow? He was from London. And he's like, you should follow Arsenal. It's like, okay, done. As I described, if Arsenal like lose a match, like my day is not ruined, but it's nicer when they win. Like I'm not all in. Like it's, again, like I started liking football much later than most people. So so they were not really big into like having full-time remote people at that time. Like this was another lifetime ago, like pre-COVID, like the idea of remote work just wasn't that popular. But I was doing so much, and it basically got to the point where they didn't have anyone else to do the work I was doing. So I basically like forced them into it. And I don't know if that's good advice to like, because, but that's what I did. And so that's what I did. Oscar's saying it's a shame that I followed Spurs. What's funny is that not only did I adopt Arsenal, but I actually have like a very much anti-Spurs thing because of Arsenal. But like I have no reason to feel that way. But like every week, I hope that Spurs lose. So sorry that you're a Spurs supporter. So that's what it is. And then I started doing like more content for RotoWire, specifically about soccer, and doing Premier League stuff. And there were all these different games that came out, and we were just covering like as much as we possibly could. And that's what I started doing. Like that became my full-time job, was making sure that everything about RotoWire was good in terms of like our soccer content. So I did that for a few years. I'm going to skip a few things because I literally only have like 5 more minutes. So I was working at RotoWire for a few years. Where are they? I'm going to take this opportunity. I won the FSWA Soccer Writer of the Year 3 times. And actually just lost. They did this year. Congrats to Jack Burkhart over at RotoWire, who won this year. And so that's just what I was doing. I was just basically doing content 7 days a week or 6 days a week. And it just became a lot. Like my job, I had very flexible hours, but I also like kind of had to work during the European time because we covered a lot of European stuff. We didn't do a ton of MLS, and then we did do MLS. And then it was like, all right, my Saturday starts at 7 a.m. and it ends at 11 p.m. And I loved it, but it also was starting to become a grind. Most of the DFS stuff I did because I played DFS. And the way I described how I played DFS was I was good enough to keep playing, but I didn't make that much money. Like I didn't make enough money to like move up in stakes even. Like I I made like 2% return at best, which is like good enough to keep playing without like constantly depositing money. But it's also the grind of DFS I just didn't like. And so at some point, this subscriber came up to me or DM me and was like, hey, is there any chance you guys could add some stats to the site? We had an Opta deal because I'm playing this new game called Sorare. And I was like, yeah, I'm sure we have them. So yeah, like we put them up. And I actually, apologies to whoever it was. I don't remember who it was who initially DM'd me. But then I started learning about Sorare and what it was. And I was like, wow, they got like a lot of stuff here. And at the time, they didn't have all of the leagues that they have now. Oscar, DFS is daily fantasy sports. So it was like daily fantasy Premier League. DraftKings and FanDuel are the two biggest ones. So I actually had a call with Brian O'Hagan at Sorare because I was like, Sorare should be a RotoWire client. Like we should sell them player notes. And then it turned out that they like advertised on RotoWire to get new subscribers or new users. And I had a call with Brian and he like explained Sorare to me like in the fall of 2020. And I thought it was the stupidest thing I'd ever heard of. Like having to like pay for JPEGs to play a fantasy game was absurd. And now I don't feel that way. But so basically at some point I like started buying cards and I started playing, and with a lot of you who are, if anybody's still watching this, like you obviously got to that point where you were like, wow, this is really cool and fun. And I got into it. And then I think it was July of 2021. So I started doing Sorare content at RotoWire. Sorry, I'm trying to like rush the end here. I started doing Sorare content at RotoWire. Sorare Andrews was a RotoWire show at the beginning. And I remember being in Las Vegas in July of 2020, having a conversation with Jason Thornberry from earlier, who got me all this extra work at RotoWire. And we were talking about, I probably shouldn't admit this, but I already work at Sorare Data, so it's all right. But we were talking about how we were completely unqualified to do any other jobs than what we had at RotoWire. Like there was no other companies that do what RotoWire does. And like the specific jobs that we did at RotoWire, like just don't exist anywhere else. And that we were kind of like stuck at RotoWire because like nobody else had jobs like this. And while I was in Vegas, Maxime sent me a DM and said, I'm going to raise money to turn Sorare Data into a business, and I'd like you to be the head of content. And it completely changed my life. And over the course of the next few months, we talked about me doing it. And then I joined Sorare Data in October of 2021. And it completely like changed my life. I loved what I did at RotoWire, and I love what I do at Sorare Data. I'm incredibly, incredibly lucky that I am somebody who can say that they like love what they do. And it took me a long time to get here. And there were a lot of like situations where like teachers don't make much money here in the States. And like my wife and I had like just bought a house. We had a kid, we had another one, and I was like making no money. And I want to believe that all of the work that I did that led up to that I did for like low money, and I just kept grinding and working how I thought was efficient, eventually got me to where I am now. And that's it. That's the story. If I left anything out, or if you guys have any other questions, feel free to reach out to me. The comments in the video is one way. You can find me on Discord or on Twitter and at Andrew M. Laird, which is on the video there. But yeah, like I think I have like the best job in the world. I love it. And I thank you all for listening to all of this. I know that I thought it was a 10-minute story and it turned out to be 30. So that's what happens. But yeah, like if there's something that you want to do, or one day, like working towards it can really, like it works. It works. Simple as that. So thank you, everyone. I'll be back next week, probably, hopefully winning. I come back next week and I'm like, you know what? We don't even have to go through the lineups because I won it all, but it probably won't happen. So we'll go through another round of rabbit hunting. Thank you, everyone, for joining, and I'll